Hi, and welcome to the Astrology with Heart podcast. I am Christina, the host and also coach at Heart Horizon Astrology. And this is episode 6. Can't believe we're at episode 6 already, but we are. So we're going to be talking today about the full moon coming up in Gemini. It's going to be at 13 degrees and 3 minutes on the 4th of December. And it will take place at 23:13, that's PM. GMT. So I'm in the United Kingdom. Wherever you are in the world, please adjust for your location. I also want to say that if you have your natal chart already, have that with you as I'm talking today. If you don't and you'd like one, you can go to my website. The link is below. And you just pop in your date of birth, place of birth, and time, and it will create your chart for you. And it's a wonderful aid when we're talking here, because you can see exactly how things affect you. And with that in mind, I want you to pay close attention to between 10 and 16 degrees of any of the mutable signs. That's Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, because this is more likely to have an impact on you. So let's talk a little bit about Gemini. What is Gemini? And Gemini is this commonly known as the sign of the twins. So it shows actually that it can have two sides. So I always call it split personality. But anyone that's Gemini is quite, they can easily pivot in social situations. And it's amazing how adaptive they can be. You think you know them, and then you see them with someone else, and you're like, wow. So they really are chameleons in social situations. They're just unbelievably adaptive. Now, what you find with Gemini having Mercury as the ruler is it's hugely mental, cerebral. Lots of major thinking going on, a really strong curiosity and need to take in and absorb a lot of data. Hugely skilled at thinking processes, at articulation, at finding different things to talk about, can be really skilled at learning languages as well. Definitely very witty in terms of written word and the spoken word. Love to learn. Independent thinkers, very good at creating perspectives and reframing them for other people. Huge amount of dexterity here. And so let's look then at some of the challenges, some of the shadow side of Gemini. And I have my moon on the 3rd, so I have my moon in the house of Gemini. So I definitely would know firsthand some of these. And I think the biggest one that I personally feel and that I see in other people is there is such an insanely strong need to know things and to gain information that you're just reading everything, watching everything, talking, having all these conversations, and you're amassing all this information, but it tends to make you mentally overheat. You go, I don't know what to think about. And, I see it in a lot of other people where they're just take in, constantly this seeking going on, but not giving it enough time to settle, to assimilate, to simmer, whatever you want to call it. We do have to be aware with Gemini and Sagittarius of the possible challenge of crosstalk, of talking across purposes and not recognizing the needs of the other. And so there definitely has to be a fusing between this, what do we seek? What can we apply here? And where we're spending time on finding things to assign meaning to them, to make them worthy. I just want to add this point. I know why I put it in it, but I think it's interesting. So when you follow on to all the signs, the preceding sign before Sagittarius is Scorpio, and we find with Scorpio there's almost this cynical side that it just, knows the extremes and the worst side of life. But when we move into that knowingness space of Sagittarius, you'll find that Sagittarius is very humorous because it knows that life is and it just laughs at it anyway, because life is too short. And I think it's a little bit of a lighter energy, and definitely Gemini is kind of more lighter in that regard as well. Not so much of the humorous side of it, but it just really enjoys that social element and finding things, and the kind of fizz that you get when you find all this information. You're like, wow, you know, I didn't know this before, I know this now. So what themes can we expect when we consider the Gemini and Sagittarius together? Well, just keep mindful of these when the full moon happens. So searching for information yet finding zero depth. Having thoughts and conversations that are at cross purposes. Learning how to discern truth from fact. Questing, a very Sagittarian word, for knowledge that supports a belief or that challenges one. So just keep those in mind. Okay, we're going to jump on to the chart section now. And I'm going to pull up the main chart for you to have a quick look at. But I know that when we look at the main chart, it's got all these aspects and multicolored lines everywhere and looks a little bit crazy. But I just want you to see it first. And just to talk a little bit about the ruler here. And then I will simplify the charts then when we go into a little bit more detail. So with the full moon in Gemini, the ruler is Mercury, and Mercury is at 22 degrees of Scorpio right now. So interesting, though. I mentioned Scorpio before about that moving through the darkness, and Mercury has been retrograding. So with the retrograde movement, it goes forward, and then it goes back, and then it comes forward again. And so it's like this interplay, this tri-dynamic that happens. So we hit something once, and then we go back over it, rethink it, redo it, reanalyze it. With Scorpio, it's going to be re-feel it, it's a water sign, really analyze it at a deeper level, to gain that kind of root sense of understanding. And so this has kind of taken us with the Scorpio Sagittarius Scorpio movement from, you know, this dark space into this really bright, joyful, expansive space, and back again. So we're kind of on that third hit now as it moves forward. And this definitely plays into the full moon. The ruler can show us how those themes are going to be expressed. It can play a really vital role in it. And with Mercury in Scorpio, we can say that our thoughts are going to be maybe a lot heavier and deeper and a lot more focused. That there may be things that we've been thinking about, or things that we've been going through that have been maybe a bit life or death in our heads. Scorpio would represent the killing off. It's like the winter time, you know, when plants have gone through their cycle and they wilt and they die off, and then they come back in the springtime. So Scorpio is very much about releasing and letting go of, it's commonly referred to as the trash man, you know. It gets rid of the rubbish, the things we don't need. And so I imagine during this Mercury retrograde cycle that we've probably come up with those themes initially, and then moving, you know, into Sagittarius gives it a little bit more of a positive and joyful and expansive view. Going back into Scorpio says, look, you've got to get your hands dirty again now, because this is the third hit now. This is where we're resolving what's been going on. And so it's really, really time to let go of those things that you identified beforehand. And if we move this back into what this axis is going to mean at this full moon, And as I said before, going back to my words of, looking at all this information and considering all of this data that you've been absorbing and what is meaningful to you, take that here and add it to the Mercury in Scorpio as to what in that information can now be released, what don't I need anymore, and what has absolute meaning and depth to me right now that I can take forward. And so I think there's a huge, deeper degree of learning that's coming up at this time, which is quite beautiful, actually. Scorpio has such a laser beam focus. It's a very intimate sign. And I would say that what's coming up is quite intimate to us in whatever way that looks like. So, yeah, definitely now is a good time to really just move forward with what you've had kind of dragging on you maybe for those few weeks what was in retrograde, and just be ready to let go of what doesn't serve, even if it's really challenging or if it's quite painful. Tap into that Sagittarian knowing, I know this is the right route for me. I know that this needs to be released. I know it's not good for me and I don't need it anymore. Is I think a healthy mindset. Okay, I've got rid of that really, really messy chart now, and you can see a lot more of a simplified chart up there. And this full moon is really not greatly aspected as such, but what you can see is those two horseshoe symbols that are directly opposite from each other are squaring this full moon, creating a grand mutable cross. And those two horseshoe-shaped symbols are known as the nodes, the south node, the north node, and collectively as the nodal axis. And they represent, they represent us as a collective, first off. So they're not, you have them in your natal chart, but here we're looking at the collective nodes, so that affects everybody. And the south node refers to where we've been, our past, what we've learnt, what we know already, what is comfortable for us, and then the north node being our point of evolution as a collective, our point of, what don't we know yet, but we need to know in order to grow. What are we uncomfortable with right now, but we need to move into a state of feeling more comfortable with. So the nodal axis is in Virgo and Pisces, and as I said, this is a mutable grand cross, which makes it quite interesting. I think that we're going to see a lot of major indecisions and mind jumping going on, feeling that sense of uncertainty about the direction that we're moving in. Perhaps we're going to see on the grand global scale, politically and economically, some jump forwards and then some jumps backwards, and what may look to be really confusing. We're not really sure whether we are going forward or back and what that means to have. And with this in mind, we might feel more comfortable when we're in our Virgo space. So when we're thinking about all of the details, when we're very deeply critiquing, analyzing, and projecting forward, when we're aware of all the data, we may not be so comfortable in the Pisces North Node. And with that Pisces North Node, it's about opening ourselves up to maybe not knowing everything, but trusting it. So whenever I think of Pisces, I just go back to all the religious scriptures, and I think about the life of Jesus, and all of the stories that are spoken will basically map out exactly what Piscean energy is. So it's that depth of compassion and unconditional love, that having an idea of where things are going to go from your heart, from an intuitive level, but not being concrete about it, to being open to magic and miracles, and to this softening, a more emotional vibe. So I think, the main differences here between, where we've been in terms of Virgo and where we could go as a collective in terms of Pisces is losing that need to be overly critical and overly on top of all the details, and be more allowing and let ourselves flow, and know that when we're feeling positive and open to our future, we kind of need to let it happen to us a little bit more. And I've spoken a lot about Pisces in some of my past podcasts and videos. So, it is about that, trying to come to terms with, hey, some of this not knowing and some of this uncertainty is not comfortable, and being able to say that, whether you say that internally to yourself or say that out loud, I don't like this. But I'm still walking a path. I might not see it clearly, but I'm still walking it. And just so long as I keep aligning it back to my heart, I'm going to keep walking, just keep going. Another thing to think about of what this axis has in common is about being called to service. I mean, both Virgo and Pisces would be about service, and service to something much greater than ourselves. And take that back to the Gemini Sagittarius full moon that we've got, the ruler of Sag being Jupiter. Jupiter was the ancient ruler of Neptune, and so there's a real connection between those two. So it could be very, very spiritual in many senses, but spiritual service, being in service and serving something greater than just yourself, which gives you the sense of meaning coming up. So we've got Gemini on the ground here, taking in, searching, taking in a lot of data information, whether through conversations, whether through reading things in a book, magazine, online, watching something, taking in all of this data and working with Sagittarius to be more selective and apply that data. Understanding that in our past collectively, we've been so used to critically analyzing to the nth degree and mapping things out, instead of being open, instead of saying, hey, what can I do in the greater scheme of things? What is my spiritual service? And what can I do with all the knowledge I have to have a more meaningful existence? We want to encapsulate it all there. So while the full moon in itself isn't heavily aspected, I've pulled up another chart here, one that's simplified again, with the focus being on that Mercury in Scorpio, and wow, Mercury trines Neptune at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree, the final degree before it moves into a new sign. Also in a conjunction with Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces, and then in aspect to Jupiter at 24 Cancer. So this is a grand water trine going on, really in effect, because at 29, and if you've listened to any of my podcasts before, already in my posts, then you will know how critical that degree is. So it's said to contain what we refer to as the fullness of the archetype. So it's the strongest of the sign that it's in. So this is the peak strength of Pisces, and remember that Pisces is our collective North Node too, and so we could see this as being a huge aid, a huge help right now in opening us up to where collectively we could go from an evolutionary perspective. What's also quite stunning about this grand water trine is that the water signs are seen to be quite evolutionary advanced in themselves, but they are extremely emotive, and so we're going to be fired up with this feeling of maybe oneness and connection, of being able to be more than we are, being able to do something at a more universal level, to be able to help the world and our future within it, to really work on that inner gut instinct and intuition, and to maybe have a sense of ourselves in the more infinite. Okay, and not that I'm going to impress on you any particular belief system, but obviously when we're in a life, we're born and then we die. But what if our souls continued? What if there's a part of ourselves that's infinite? What about then? There's more of a future. It's not just what's happening in this singular lifetime. And also when we look at that Jupiter in Cancer, wow, I mean, that's really expanding that kind of motherly, nurturing instinct within all of us, and that ability to care about ourselves, self-care, and really look after ourselves, but also to be quite sensitive that everything's happening. And Neptune again will be extremely sensitive time, so we have a very, very high degree of sensitivity to what is happening to us beyond the what I call the day-to-day drudgery that Virgo would represent. Really sensitive to where we are all going and what that means for every single one of us. So that sense of oneness and connection, it's not just about me, it's about all of us. We're all in this together, and whatever is going on in this world, we need to respect each other. We need to move as one. What is also happening is that Saturn, that's feels like it's been retrograde forever, is now direct to 25 degrees. And again, I said before in past podcasts, if you haven't listened, that Saturn is very much about our boundaries, our protective layers, borders. And Pisces is about dissolving, and the boundaries and the layers become a lot more porous and permeable. But when you have it, it's quite an interesting mix between Pisces, Neptune, and Saturn, Capricorn here, in that you've got this kind of really physical barrier, and then you've got Neptune that is kind of anything but. They're almost like opposites. It's like solid material and invisibility. You've got Neptune as the dreams, the magic, and then you've got Saturn as a physical reality, what is actually happening. And so you blend those together, and there's an opportunity, and the opportunity is the things that you've had that you've only been dreaming about. This could be wonderful if Saturn does provide an opportunity to ground those in reality. Now, bearing in mind that the dream may not quite match the reality, but it might be a slightly harsher kind, but it could bring some of those ideas, dreamlike ideas that you've had that you thought you would never reach into a kind of reality within your life, which is lovely. We do, though, have to ensure that we can see the difference between intuition and illusion. Neptune can definitely be the rose-tinted glasses. It can really gloss things over and give them a very magical feel. But we do have to realize, when something is kind of too good to be true at the same time. So I think, something you're dreaming about could be grounded, but it's not going to be as glitzy as maybe it felt it was going to be. I want to leave you with two things. One, a few questions for reflection. I'll just mention a few here, but if you want to, if you're listening on the podcast and you want to take a look at the charts or read the blog post in full, you're going to get a few more questions in there, and also a few rituals. And the same, there's a lot more rituals on the blog post as well. You're welcome to read in full. So just a few questions that I want to leave you with, leave lingering in your mind. And with this being very mercurial right now, even better for having them kind of sit there at the back of your mind. So number 1 is, what truth do I need to name out loud right now? Number 2, where am I collecting information to avoid deciding? So this plays into the indecision. Number 3, which conversation would bring clarity if I had it right now? And I want you to bear in mind on this one, you can actually have, what do they call them? Like freefall conversations with yourself. You can just talk to yourself out loud, or you can literally write things out, like a free write. That's what I mean. You can just write things out to maybe bring in some of that right brain too. And the last one, just for here, what belief does my curiosity point towards, and how does it serve me? So if you want to see a few more questions to hold at the back of your mind, please go to the blog post. The link will be below. If you do like doing rituals on the new and full moons, I've got a couple of really nice ones here that play into the Gemini theme. And this first one is called Write and Speak Release. And so you basically free write for about 15 minutes. And then you read out loud what you wrote. And if you'd like to, you can record it as well. And this just brings into consciousness some of the things you've kind of had in the background. So this is really wonderful for getting to a deeper truth within yourself. Another one is a curiosity altar. So you can place a notebook, a pen, and a small mirror, and you light a candle, and you have them all together, and you just ask one question out loud that you've been afraid to pose to yourself. So being really, really brave in this moment and putting it out there. A second ritual that you might like to do really taps into this part of Gemini that can be quite restless and maybe start something but not quite finish it, is to teach yourself to commit to a particular activity for a minimum of 2 weeks. Now, Gemini is quite a long time, whether it be writing a journal or working on a short story, or perhaps a new learning venture, you're learning something. So just being really consistent and really committed to it for a 14-day period. And obviously, if you start to love it and you stick to it, then you can expand that to maybe another 14 days. But there are a lot more rituals on the blog post, so please do feel free to jump in and have a read and try some of those out, and then tell me what you think. What questions really resonated with you? What rituals did you try? Did you feel anything from them? Did anything come back? Don't be scared to pop some comments in there. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for listening in again. All the links are below. Everything I've mentioned you will find below. Please do share, leave a review, come find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. I'd be happy to hear from you, whatever feels good for you. And I shall be back with the next episode in a couple of weeks.